introduce to you what Time magazine called one of the top 5 governors in the United States, and also one of the top rising political stars in the entire United States. Our next senator, former Governor Mark Warner.
Bill, thank you very much. That was a great introduction.
Thank you.
What are you doing for the next 11 months? You get that perfectly canned and take it with me on the road. What a great turnout. It must be free. I originally heard this was going to be billed as a bar association breakfast, right? Initially. Boy, you all looked like lawyers.
Thank you.
I know about our friends in the press here. One thing that people don't know about my background, I actually am a lawyer by training. I went to Harvard Law School, did fine with my grades and all, but I had a unique distinction for you members of the bar here. I was the only member, I shouldn't say this in front of Jeff, but I was the only member of the Harvard Law School class of 1980. It didn't get a job offer either place I clerked as a summer associate. Oh, man, you got it. Well, it is wonderful to see all of you come out this morning, and what we're starting. Something I'm calling kind of hometown tours, and boy, there's so many friends. I'm not going to make the political faux pas of going around and recognizing people in this room who I've grown to know either through politics or business or my tenure as governor over the last, we'll say, 15 to 20 years. But started these tours, calling hometown tours, coming back to seeing old friends, also visiting some of the projects that I've been involved with when I was governor. I was up in Ray yesterday, where we've been active in terms of designating that community as a Main Street community and put some redevelopment money in there. And boy, oh boy, downtown Ray, if you haven't been in recently, some very cool things going on in terms of revitalization, a lot of new artisans, antique shops. I mean, I think it's going to be a real tourist destination. Going to go by and visit the co-op a little bit later today. Again, something where the state, I was glad to see, stepped up to make sure that our poultry industry here, we could have that kind of support for our farmers in that purchasing of that entity. Going to see the new hospital. Was over at JMU yesterday. Going to go by Bridgewater today. Some of our great colleges and universities. Went over and saw SRI yesterday afternoon, and I think that was something that we started the last couple months of our administration. It takes a little while to mature, but I think a decade from now we'll look back at that SRI announcement and say that was one of the most significant positive things that happened in the Valley over the last 25 years, because world-class jobs, world-class research jobs right here in the Valley, so that your young people who graduate from these great colleges and universities in this community won't have to leave the community to find top-notch jobs. A lot of great things going on in the Valley. Obviously, we still have some challenges. I know most of us still get on 81 and say a prayer. Hopefully we get those trucks off, and wouldn't it be great to try to get those trucks off on the rail or some other road? But here's what I thought we'd do this morning. I'm going to talk for a few minutes, and Larry, hopefully a real Mark Warner few minutes as opposed to a politician few minutes. And then, because we build this as kind of a conversation, I'll be more than happy to take questions or comments or suggestions from the crowd. As you know, a few months back, I decided I would run for the United States Senate. And let me tell you why. First of all, let me say I wouldn't have run if John Warner would have run again. I have enormous respect for Senator Warner. It's kind of interesting. A couple of folks here were reminding me that my first campaign was actually against John Warner, the old Mark Not John campaign. I told that story about having that bumper strip during the campaign. At one point when I was down in Danville, somebody saw me. Most folks didn't know me at that point, saw the Mark Not John bumper strip, honest to goodness truth, and looked at me, looked at the bumper strip and said, "Excuse me, sir, is that a biblical reference?" That was the race I got the silver medal. But I mention it only because it's kind of unusual in politics to run against somebody and then become good friends with them. And I have to say that every major issue we took on when I was governor, whether it was tax reform, whether it was transportation, referendums, John Warner was right there by my side, and trying to put Virginia's interest first over partisan interest. Enormous respect for him, enormous respect for how he served the United States Senate. But when he and I had been talking for a number of months beforehand, and when he decided not to run again, I thought this might be a place where I could serve. Some of you in this room know that I looked at running for national office this time. Part of the reason I didn't was the vote was 4-0 against me in my own household. There were some times I've had, wistful thoughts about that as I look at these national campaigns go forward. Although there are benefits of not running, this Monday night, on the eve of the New Hampshire primary, as opposed to knocking on doors in cold New Hampshire weather, I took my youngest daughter, Eliza, and her 2 friends to the Hannah Montana concert. I deserve a place in heaven for that.
How was it?
It was, wow. We all get the concert is loud. But I decided to run because in January of '09, we're going to have a new president. I hope it's going to be a Democrat. Regardless whether it's a Democrat or Republican, there's going to be a new president. Our country's going to get a fresh start. And my hope is that if I can get hired for this position, that this new president is going to need folks in the United States Senate who are going to be about making transformative change. And let me say at the front, and a lot of us in this room are Democrats, but I have no interest in going to the United States Senate and just being one more vote for any particular partisan agenda. Matter of fact, what I hope to create is I would love to try to go to the United States Senate and build 8, 10, 12 member bipartisan coalition. It would be a new group of radical centrists to make sure that we could actually get some things done in this country. Because what I am fearful of sometimes as a Democrat is that I hope and pray at least that if we are successful at president level and House level and Senate level, that we don't bring the same kind of arrogance that the other side brought during the first 6 or 7 years of this century. I say that as a proud Democrat, but I say also, I think at this point in our country's history, the problems are so enormous, the challenges are so great, that if we're going to make the kind of transformative change that I believe that's needed, we're going to need to demonstrate that we can truly put together bipartisan solutions, because I think that gives the kind of seal of approval that the American people will then say, hey, this is in the country's interest, not just a partisan interest. I would argue that that's what we did when I was governor. Everything we did from the battle about investment in education, from the battle about trying to change over some of our education reforms, to the battle on reworking our economic development efforts. They were all done in a bipartisan way. And that is why I'm starting on this journey. Let me take a couple of moments and tell you about a couple of the issues